Karl, how fares the mighty Empire?
Go away, Luther. I have no desire for your gloating.
What could have happened, I wonder? It's almost as if one of the weakest races in the game just received a big middle finger thanks to Creative Assembly. But surely that's not the case.
A middle finger? No, this is much more than that. It's not enough that the Empire is one of the most ignored races with improvements only coming half a year down the line from now. It's not sufficient that we have legendary lords of chaos, vampires, greenskins and beastmen in our ranks, or that I have to hold this empire with a prayer that the brain-dead AI among the elect accounts don't die too early. No, even all this is merely the tip of the iceberg for Creative Assembly. They give further insult to injury by adding a new legendary lord in the mix. What have we ever done to deserve such a fate? The Empire is a joke, Luther. Free money for any imbecile to march on in and burn it to the ground.
Welcome everyone, Costin here with a discussion about the Changeling in Total War Warhammer 3 Immortal Empires and how he is going to completely ruin the already terrible state that the Empire is in. So, let's take a look at the Changeling. He is going to start in Stirland and he is going to go on a murder rampage against Stirland. He does have a couple of advantages with respect to this. Yes, he is going to start pretty close to Karl Franz, who, when controlled by the AI, will obviously start with the entirety of the Reichland, but Karl Franz has other things to worry about. He's got Kazarek over here to the north, with whom he starts a war with. So, if you're playing the Changeling, you will probably be able to go on a rampage against the Empire, or against Stirland, but no one really likes Stirland anyway. And you'll be setting up your cults over here. Now, you also have these beastmen. Whether or not the Redhorn tribe is removed or changed from this area, that's a different discussion. But assuming that the Redhorn tribe stays in this, you could potentially gain quite a bit of money from these guys. Because the way beastmen diplomacy works at the moment is if you sign, say, an inauguration pact with them as Chaos, because only really Chaos can interact with them in terms of diplomacy, you can gain potentially a significant amount of money to help you get going. Though I think it would make sense if the Changeling was removed, if when the Changeling is added, they remove the Redhorn tribe from the game completely and just replace him over here in this kind of starting position, or just adapt it as a starting position. So his initial enemies are going to be Stirland. And looking at the Empire, what really screws over the Empire is this. You've got Festus over here that's going to wipe out Hockland early on. You've got both the Black Pit Orc tribe and Kazrak who are going to significantly reduce the power of Midland. You've got Draika and Azak who are going to annihilate Ostermark. And then you've got Vlad. And also, just for good measure, you have Skrag coming in, you have the Norskins coming in from the north. You do have many issues. Also, let's not ignore Grom the Paunch if you're playing the Empire. But how should you play if you are going to do a campaign as the Changeling? Well, here's what I would personally do in this situation. You're going to set up cults. You should probably set up cults over here in this area to start recruiting units from these cult settlements. And then you have to be concerned about, because you do have both Karl Franz and Gelt close enough to you. And being a Chaos faction, both of them are going to hate you quite a lot. And that may cause issues for you if they do team up against you. So you're going to want to strike as quickly as possible to eliminate, to either eliminate them or to find yourself in an advantageous position. Though keep in mind, there's a lot of things that are going to happen in the Empire, but you're starting close enough to both of them that they could just turn their ire against you. This is one of the reasons I believe that the Changeling will not be long for this world when controlled by the AI, but I guess it depends on what kind of stances he has, what kind of movement stances, because if he has a stock stance, then his survivability will go significantly higher than by default. If he doesn't have it, then he is going to have some issues with that, because you'll just get the armies of Nuln, Eichland, and Solund marching against you. Now, bear in mind that if you are playing the Empire, this is still a miserable situation, because you get another legendary lord on top of the already existing ones, like 2 electric counts are always gonna be wiped out in every campaign. Talabheim is already under threat. Vlad was already putting a significant amount of pressure on Stirland. The true beneficiary of the Changeling starting position is not even the Changeling himself, though the Empire is certainly one of the easier starting locations in the entire game, because the Empire itself is a really pathetic race. They start really weak. They can get decent later on, but even a faction like Siege, by default, would actually be able to handle the Empire, the starting position, quite easily. Like, putting Kairos Fateweaver in the start position, yeah, you would annihilate everyone that stands in your path, even if it wouldn't be a great experience overall, but you would be able to do it without really too much effort. But the true beneficiary of all of this is going to be Vlad von Karstein. The reason Vlad is going to benefit from this is, here's what happens when you don't play a faction in the Empire. Vlad takes some territory, then he starts pushing towards Altdorf, but then the combination of Reichland and Saarland, so Balthazar Gelt and Karl Franz, as well as the dwarves, so Karakadrin in particular, they start pushing him out. And he eventually just gets overwhelmed because he's facing 3 Legendary Lords. But now he's going to have an additional Legendary Lord, and if you're playing the Changeling, it would be in your best interest to end up allying Vlad. Now, you do have one major issue that's going to harm you in your campaigns as the Changeling. The way you make diplomacy work for a substantial number of factions in this game is by trading territory to them, taking territory and giving it to other factions. That's something the Changeling can't do, and Vlad, of course, is not necessarily going to be the biggest fan of his, because Vlad doesn't necessarily like anyone. I mean, he doesn't like the Empire, but he also doesn't like Chaos all that much. It is easier to get an alliance with Vlad as an evil faction, but not necessarily by that much. So, you are going to have issues being able to make that work if you're playing as the Changeling, but it does seem like the most natural outcome. So Vlad can help control the entire eastern border while you deal with everything else and start building a massive network of cults around the entire empire. Or if you can teleport around the map, because remember, we haven't really seen all his mechanics, but assuming you're stuck in this area of the empire, yeah, just build a massive network of cults around this area, or help Vlad take the territory of the empire while having cults under every single settlement that feed into your economy. Or just raise the settlements to the ground to eliminate these factions. If you're looking to leave some factions alive, I would leave the minor imperial factions alive and just eliminate Karl Franz and Balthazar Gelt. That would probably be the best chance of success you do have if you're playing as the Changeling. But yes, the situation for the Empire is going to go from bad to even worse. And I do wonder about Thrones of Decay. Are they going to add another Legendary Lord in the Empire that we're going to have to face? Because with Thrones of Decay, it seems like they're going to add the Dark Lady of Nuln and Tamarkand. But Tamarkand did march on Nuln, so we'll see how that plays out ultimately in Immortal Empires in particular. Because if they add another Legendary Lord for the Forces of Disorder in the Empire, that after adding the Changeling, that's going to make things far worse than they already are. Not that things are great for the Empire. The biggest problem for the Empire isn't that the situation is unmanageable. It would be manageable, but this meter, and this is a mod, keep that in mind, but this meter is a fucking nightmare to tackle. Senior, signing out. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and enable notifications.